Assalamu alaikum. Hello viewers, hope you are doing well and enjoying your life. I welcome you all to the channel of English with MW. In this video, we will discussing about advanced course. Now remember that advanced course is for those students who know somewhat about beginner course or foundation course. Now, first of all, we will telling about tense, what the tense is. So in this video, we will discussing about the tense, and I'm pretty sure after watching this video, you will know what the tense is. So look at, we will understanding what the tense is. So the grammarian says, tense is basically time plus action. So now I'm pretty sure you don't know what the tense is. So inshallah, after watching this video, you will know what the tense is. So remember that the grammarian basically says that tense is time plus action. Now, in order to understand time, we should understand timeline, what the timeline is. So in order to understand time, we must understand timeline. But what is timeline? Remember that there are basically three times. Number first time is present time. Number first time is present. Now remember that what is the present time? This is basically the ongoing time. The ongoing time, or we can also call as the real time. I am writing on the board. So present time is basically the ongoing time, or the real time we call it, or the grammarian call it present time. Now the second time is past time. So now we will discussing what the past time is. So the time before present. The time before present is basically called as past time. And number third time is future time, which is basically the imaginary time. So now we have understand the timeline. In timeline, there are basically three times. One is the present time, which is the ongoing time or the real time. And the second is past time, which is the time before present. And the third one is future, which is basically the imaginary time. Remember that in tenses, we studied about future tense, future simple future tense, in future continuous tense, in future perfect, and future perfect continuous. But the grammarian have now written in their book that future is not tense, because this is an imaginary time. And inshallah, in this video, we will learning why future is not a tense. So stay tuned with English with MW. So now, after understanding all this timeline, now we will understanding what the action is. So now, please write down this on your notebook. Now we will understanding what the action is. So now, in order to understand action, there are also basically three actions. So now we understand time through timeline, and now I will also be understanding what the action is. So remember that there are basically three actions. Number one, continuous action. So what is continuous action? This is basically ongoing action. The ongoing action is basically called as continuous action. Now, number third is perfect action. Now, what is perfect action? So remember that perfect action is basically the completed action. The completed action is basically, we call it perfect action. And number third is perfect continuous. Perfect continuous. So now remember that perfect continuous is the combination of perfect as well as continuous action. So we will write it as the half completed action. The half completed action is basically called as perfect continuous action. So now we have discussed action, we have discussed time, we have discussed time to timeline, and we have discussed action, that there are basically three action. One is continuous action, which is basically the ongoing action, and second is perfect, which is basically the completed action, and number third is perfect continuous, which is the half completed action, because it is the combination of perfect as well as continuous. Now we will discussing about four. Remember that one thing should be remembered about these actions, that all these three actions, continuous, perfect and perfect continuous, they specify time. We understand what the time is through these tenses, but there are some tenses, some of the action which did not specify time. For example, I am writing the sentence here on the board. For example, I writing here, I read. So I have written this sentence on the board, that I read. Now this sentence does not specify any time. So we call these type of the sentences, or these action, we call as indefinite. Indefinite actions. So remember that we have understand four type of action. One is continuous, which is the ongoing action. Other is perfect, which is the complete action. Other is the perfect continuous, which is the half complete action. And other is indefinite action, because it does not specify any time or any of the process. So now we will discussing more about tense, what the tense is basically. Now we have discussed time and action in detail. In this video we will discussing tense in more detail as well. Now we have discussed what the tense is. Tense basically equal to time plus action. We have discussed time through timeline, and we also have discussed action, that there are basically four type of the action. One is the continuous action, other is perfect action, other is perfect continuous, and other is indefinite action. Now in order to discuss tense in more detail, or through concept wise, we will discussing the verb forms. Now the grammarian says that there are basically three forms, the verb first form, verb second form, and verb third form, and what they shows to us. But the non-native speaker call is that there are basically four form of the verb, is also they mention in their books. But now remember that we will discussing verb in detail, and you will understand that what are the form of the words. First we will discuss all of the form of the words. So verb first form basically shows us present time. Verb first form basically shows us present time. Now the word second form, according to grammarian, shows us past time. While word third form, according to grammarian, shows us perfect action. So word first form basically shows us present time, the word second form basically shows past time, and according to grammarian, word third form basically shows us perfect action. Now remember that some of the non-native speakers says that there are also word fourth form. Now remember that word for form is, there is nothing, according to grammarian, there is no form of the word for form, but according that there is basically changes in the word for. Word form first form is basically word first form plus ing. According to grammarian, there are certain changes occur in the word first form. So word first form plus ing, they call it that this is not a form of the verb, but the non-native writer have written in their book that there is basically a word first form. So now, according to the non-native speaker, that there are 4 forms of the verb, but according to the grammarian, and we should follow grammarian, that there are just 3 forms of the verb. Now remember that this word first form plus ing also shows continuous action. Also shows So now, our first form basically shows present time, our second form basically shows past time, and the word third form basically shows perfect action, while the word first form plus ing basically shows the continuous action. Now, we have discussed all these forms of the verb. Now, through one single example, I will be showing that what the tense basically is. In earlier this video, we have discussed what the tense is. We have discussed that tense basically is time plus action. Time plus action. Now remember that I am writing some of the example here. If someone says that he is doing his work, now is basically a helping verb or auxiliary verb, but remember that is also verb first form, and we know that verb first form basically shows us present time. Word first form basically shows us present time. Now doing, so now here in this sentence, doing is basically main verb. And remember that doing, so do is basically first form and plus ing. So this is basically verb first form plus ing. Word first form plus ing, and remember that word first form plus ing basically shows us continuous action. So now what we have learned, that is, which is basically helping verb of the or auxiliary verb, shows us time, and while the word first form do plus ing basically shows us action. So as I mentioned there, the tense basically equal to time and action. Now what we will conclude from this example, that basically tense is shown by the verb. Time is also basically shown by the verb. So I'm writing here, note this example in your notebook or take a screenshot from here. Now I'm just for example here. So now we have learned that tense. Time is basically shown by the verb. And action is also shown by the verb here. So in place of action, I will also write down the verb. So remember that tense. So now we conclude that tense is basically a verb. Are you shocked? I'm pretty sure you are shocked because you don't know what the tense is, and now you will be able to know after watching this video that tense is basically a verb. Now we will defining what the tense is. So basically we have learned that the tense is basically verb. According to grammarian, tense is basically a verb. Now, what the tense is? So, according to this formula, we will defining tense. The tense is when an action, tense Tense basically, tense tell us about particular action, about an action. Tense tell us about an action at a particular interval of time. So this is basically the definition of the tense. The tense basically tells us about an action at a particular interval of time. Now remember that we are all done with the tense, that what is basically a tense. Now one thing that we should know about, that as I mentioned earlier in this video, that verb first form basically show present time, verb second form basically show past time, and verb third form basically show perfect action. Now has and verb fourth form or verb first form plus ing basically shows us continuous action. Now here that from these we know that none of the verb form shows us the future tense, future time, or the future action. So that's why the grammarian says that future is not a tense. This is just an imaginary time. Hope you guys understand about the tense. In this video we have discussed what the tense is. We have discussed tense in a very comprehensive and a conceptual way. We have defined tense and we understand that basically tense is time plus action. We have discussed time through timeline, and we also have discussed all the four forms of the action, that what are that of the continuous action, what are the perfect action, what are the perfect continuous action, and what are the independent action. Now wait for the next videos. We will discussing more about the tense, what the tense is, and stay tuned with English with MW. Share this video with your friends, like and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much.